Okay. Greetings from our studio in Amsterdam. I'm thrilled and honored today to have a very old friend, not an old guy,
Very
just
old.
a friend, Peter Koenig, who is definitely the godfather of understanding what does money actually mean. Some logistics information for those of you who are just joined for the first time. If you have a question, just type it in the comments area. Please introduce yourself in the comments there. Hi, I'm Peter from so and so. And if you need desperately to connect with anyone here, all of the people will be on your phone app, in the group chat, or in the attendance list, or on your desktop. If you move your mouse over the person, you'll be able to send a private message. So for those of you that are from another planet and have not heard of Peter Koenig, I'm going to let Peter introduce himself and say and explain, what he's does and how successful have you been with that?
Oh, thank you. Hello, everybody. It's nice to see a few familiar names passing through the participant list. And hello, Robert, and thank you so much for this invitation. And it's really a pleasure to be here with you because, as you say, I'm very, very old. Old enough, old enough to remember when TBLI started, and and old enough to remember that I had an initial objection. I don't know if you remember. I said, Robert, you can't put profit on the same level as people and planet. You have to put people and planet first. But quite rightly, you insisted to start with triple bottom line and look at where you have come with that. It's been really fantastic. As for me and your question, I've been looking at the relationship to money. I started researching this actually almost 40 years ago to try and understand my own relationship after successes in property and studying economics at university and being at business school and being a strategic consultant to top managers who were double my age. I realized that there was one subject that was never being addressed and had what I appeared to me to have quite a strong impact in decision making. That was the relationship to money. And when I started to research it, I went back to university business schools and found that actually it was virgin territory. And that's what started me off. And it took 10 years research to really get the answer I was looking for and develop a process to be able to, well, to put it shortly, help to people like myself first, but other people to change their relationship if they felt the need to. And that's been the largest part of my work over the last 30 to 40 years. So I've been successful. I've helped, I think, thousands of people with their relationship to money. But I haven't been totally successful. What I really like with you, Robert, and TBLI is that you're always challenging. Because you've been very successful in getting, the amounts of money we called it SRI
If
originally.
you could repeat that, my wife is listening.
You've been incredibly successful from the first days when it was called SRI and TBLI and impact, right up to impact investing, to get to seeing trillions come in right now and even more money coming in to this field. But I love the way you keep challenging and saying, are we really making any difference? Is this real impact? And I think you're so right on. And this is where my work is going too, because you and I are old enough to have been putting doing our work, doing what we love, in fact. But if we look at what's happening on the planet right now, in terms of scientific indicators, we haven't yet made the dent that we want to be making. And I like the way that you're putting that out so clearly, and I'm putting that out clearly as well. So impact is really at the center of my work, has always been at the center of my work, and I believe we're not yet making sufficient impact. So that's my little introduction for you.
I had an unusual question. Let's say Donald Trump and his family called you and they said, we want you to do a workshop with us. We don't think we have a problem, but some people think we have a problem with money and being a narcissist. One, would you work with them? And two, if you did work with them, how long would you keep going until you realize you're not worth the effort?
How long would, say that second part again?
Okay, so if Donald Trump said, okay, Peter, you got to help me and the family.
I would say yes. I say yes.
Okay. How long will you work before you realize this is not worth the effort? I mean, I'm sure you've had people who come to your workshops and come again and again, and they still struggle, and they haven't really changed their attitude toward money.
No, it's not true. First of all, you must understand, Robert, for many years, I forbade people to come twice. I didn't allow people. And afterwards, when I did allow them, I only allowed them in, I used to call them my little failures. And the reason I didn't allow them to come back at the beginning, I'm a little softer now, I'm a little more compromising. But at the beginning, the reason is that what I've developed is such a simple system that I was insisting that people not only come, my standard money seminar was and still is pretty well 2 days. I've been training others to give them now, but 2 days. And I said, in 2 days, we can work on your relationship to money, but actually the system is so simple that you must take this system and use it for yourself. And you shouldn't be coming back to me. You should be able to use it for yourself. And if you ask me how successful, sort of percentage-wise, of course, I'm not 100% successful with everybody that comes to me. But I think my batting average is not bad. I would say 70% at least.
What? 70%?
Yes. Yes. And of course, it's been increasing over time because, you see, I don't have a closed process. My money seminar and system is not like, now I've developed it and it's finished. It's been refining and refining and refining over 30 years. And I've been training others to work with my system. And for me, their work is only good if it's better than mine. So that's the challenge I've set myself with the people that I've been training, that they take my work, but they don't just copy it. It's not like something just to replicate. Mm-hmm. They need to actually put themselves into it and even, if possible, do it better than me.
But what is success? What you say 70% success? What does that mean? That people give away all their money because it's such a horrible reflection of them, or they want even more money, or they're happy, being rich and obsessed with things. What is success?
So the success is, and this has been the bottom line of this work from the very start, is that they're more capable of realizing what they want to realize in their lives. So at the bottom line is listening to their calling, why they were born ultimately, and to be able to put themselves into a space where they're not pulled away by other aspects of life, and particularly not pulled away by their relationship to money, to do other things. So let me just say a bit more about that. Because if you look at how you were educated, I was educated, and almost everybody is still educated, we have been educated in a system where we're supposed to work to earn money, to then, when we've got this thing called money kind of sorted out, then we can start to do what we want in our life. Now, this worked very well for your and my parents and grandparents and previous generations, because the end product was material industrial products, and it was extremely successful. But what we failed to notice in the 1960s and 1970s was that our needs were changing from material products to immaterial ones. So if you ask people nowadays, what is it you need? People will say things like security, health, happiness, a feeling of self-worth, freedom. These are immaterial things, and you can't get them this is the tragedy, if you like, you can't get them by working harder and earning more money. So success is getting people off this hamster wheel where they think, okay, I need to have money for my security. I need to have money for my happiness. I need to have money to have choice in my life. I need to have money to exist. Now, these are all illusions, which people who are on a hamster wheel don't recognize yet as illusions. So if you say, I'm going to invest my money because when I got 25 million, then I'll be okay. Then I can start to do what I want in life. So you can't imagine how many of these people I've had over 30 years. They all have the same experience. They get to, if they're successful, they get to 23 million, and etc. But by then, their life has so evolved that they need to have 50 million. So it's a perpetual hamster wheel. And success for me is helping them to recognize what's happening with them. And this is what I developed over these 10 years, a specific intervention in their process, which is like reconstructing their neural pathways, which helps them to decondition from this conditioned programming which is in our education. So that's what I call success. And
but with second and third generation family offices who are petrified about the figure of most of the third generation loses all the money. And so that third generation has a lot of pressure. So it's not only the pressure of the money, it's the pressure of not losing the money.
That's right.
Really upsetting the family, which you have to sit down with regularly for dinner. That's a different issue with relation to money.
It's a different issue, and it's another one we can deal with. You see, with my approach, I can deal with all the issues, every single one. So I've described actually only half of the hamster wheel. The other half, this is the half that's known pretty well. There's another half which is not recognized at all. And at least half of the world population, or at least the half of the population I've been dealing with, are actually unconsciously pushing money away from themselves. They don't like money. They feel that money is bad, feel money is evil, and many still, even in the investing field, the impact investing field, have these issues. So we need to neutralize those issues as well for people to be able to work well with money. So we can actually, with my system, we have the ability, I talk about we because I've trained many practitioners now, we have the ability to diagnose exactly what the issue is, whatever the generation is, and to help that person get off what is a conditioned form of patterning so that they kind of neutralized, and then they can work freer with money in any direction. It means that they can feel freer if they have more of it, if they have the same amount of it, or if they have less of it, or if they have debt. In other words, whatever, it's not dependent on the figure at the end of the day. And what comes more into focus is, what am I doing with my life, actually? So life and love become much more important.
That I could see that might work with individuals that is their own money and they're looking for purpose. If I think of the civil servants who work at a pension fund, I mean, for me, they're civil servants. They think they're masters of the universe, but for me, they're civil servants. The functionaries, their job, and asset managers at BlackRock and Goldman Sachs and all the others, their job is to increase and achieve a performance. So how do you deal with someone like that? Listen, I am fired if I don't get more. I can't go down, even though I find my purpose and I really like it, but I got to perform.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's like cogs in the wheel of the institutional machine, whether it's government or whether it's industry or wherever. Now, the bottom line, in a sense, of this work, in one sense, I use the word love, but in another sense, it's consciousness. So, and it's like you can't bring a horse to water and make it drink.
Yeah.
So people have to do this work, and that's why it's taken a long time to build it up. It needs a certain level of consciousness to even ask the question of what is my relationship to money and how is this impacting my life? So the people that you might be thinking of and describing are not even ready to ask that question. And they need, in a sense, and I don't mean this disparagingly, but they need to be cogs in this machine for as long as they need to be cogs in the machine until they, ask this question and are starting to develop themselves in other ways. So my work, what I've been doing is, I think you remember I came to your conferences a couple of times. And
you did a session on the meaning of money and how the various religions.
Yes. And if you remember, it attracted very few people, you see.
Yeah.
Even in your circle.
Yeah.
I don't know if Rosanna Grimaldi is here, but it attracted...
Not today, but I still have contact with her.
Yeah. It attracted Rosanna Grimaldi and a few other people.
Yeah.
But actually, people were still much more interested on the returns on their investments, the financial returns.
Of course.
And if you look at society at large, it's still much the case. But the reason I've stuck with this work, Robert, is when I had this kind of recognition, I was like a gift to see what was happening with the relationship with money. What I recognized then is that if money is not dealt with in this kind of way that I'm suggesting, none of the big questions, we're talking about climate change, inequality, and many other big questions now, none of them can be answered because money, the relationship to money is weaving through all of them. So it's like the elephant in the room. People, are doing, wonderful work with renewable energies and God knows what. But then they come together to work together in partnership. And then they have to figure out, well, how do we deal with the money between us? And I can't tell you how much work I've done helping people in that kind of area, well-meaning people with wonderful projects, but getting stuck then into situations, personal relationships with each other where money is not really flowing well between them and having to sort that out.
You said that people have to be at a certain level of consciousness, which means you have a high percent of success because you're already filtering out the losers. You're filtering out people that don't have a level of consciousness, so they're more receptive to what you're saying.
They are attracted because they feel something. I used to be an expert in marketing, Robert.
Really?
Yes.
So what did you sell?
At business school.
Kind of garbage.
Okay. Well, I was a salesman at 17. I was selling central heating in London. But that's a whole other story.
Okay.
But actually, at business school, I was known I got best marks in marketing. But when I came to do this work, I used my marketing and it all failed.
Okay.
Because what I had to learn was that when you reach a certain level of consciousness, beyond a certain level, it's not about going out and giving some kind of a hard sell. It's actually promoting what you sort of giving a vision of what you're doing, and you don't know where the people are going to come from. It's like sending out a message and allowing the resonance to occur. And this is what is happening still now. When people come to my seminars, I can't sell them my seminars. I can only send out the message. And people sometimes say, well, what's your target group? And I can only say, I don't have one. I need to be the target for the people to come to who want to do something with their relationship to money. And it's like looking at truffles, looking for truffles, because people are sometimes only ready the night before or the morning before they're ready. And I'm sure it's the same with you and your work, actually. It's the same with you because you're actually attracting a pretty high level of consciousness as well.
Yes, it's true that if people have a low level of consciousness, there's no point in shouting loudly in German to someone who speaks Chinese or Mandarin. You're not going to get anywhere. So that's true. They have to be at a certain level. But how do you get them from, because I'm dealing with people who are financial professionals who are incentivized for short-term behavior. So I always focus mainly on the irresponsible investors and criminals. For a couple of reasons. They have a better sense of humor and they have more money and they're very predictable. They're very pragmatic. But it's still, how do you get that level of consciousness to the point of, hey, maybe what I'm doing is not my bliss. Maybe I need to look at something else. Or maybe what I'm doing is my bliss. And I'm happy, making money grow. I remember I introduced my wife to somebody, an old school friend who worked at Cantor Fitzgerald. And she said to him, I don't understand. What is the fun of trading money? And he looked at her bewildered. He says, what do you mean making several $1 million in, 2 minutes by trading dollars? And she said to him again, I don't get it. What is the fun? So they were really on two completely different levels of consciousness, both happy with what they're doing. But tell us a little bit more how your system works. How do you get someone to a level of consciousness before they do the course?
Well, I don't do that, of course. All I'm putting out is a vision and an offer and seeing what comes. So one of the secrets maybe is that I'm not hung up on numbers, on quantity of people. So I go, for example, when I was giving seminars, I was going wherever I felt the need. And I've done many seminars with 2 or 3 people, which other seminar givers would probably say, I won't go. Actually, I went to North Germany for a seminar with 0 people.
Why? 100% successful.
Well, let me tell you, it's a nice little story. Let me tell you why. Because the person who was organizing it put so much energy into organizing it, and he got nobody coming. And I couldn't understand why. He didn't understand why. And I said, well, look, he's put all this energy. I want to give him the credit for this. So I flew up to Northern Germany and I spent 3 days with his family. And on the second day, he happened to be a cutter for ZDF, the television station. He said, Peter, I've never made a film before, but I'd like to make a film of you.
Oh, wow.
So actually, we spent 2 hours in his father's studio where he interviewed me and he spent a year cutting to make this film. And actually, it's turned out, to be an incredibly promotional thing for me without any intention at all. I wouldn't have cared. I would have gone home without any intention of having any particular result. But this is, if you like, this is how I've been working. I've just been following where I feel I need to put myself and allowing to come to me what wants to come to me. And that's how I continue.
Is catching up to you. You're not pushing any, it's coming to you. But I'm from Brooklyn, so I need to be a bit pragmatic. So how does the system work? I mean, I come in there, there's nobody in the room, I'm the only one, or I'm with 10 people. Is it body work? Is it just PowerPoint presentations?
No.
What do you do? Take us through the process.
Okay. So you come in, I mean, it's normally a circle number of people. And actually, it's a process of exchange and dialogue, most of the time, process oriented. So what I'm looking for is what each participant is needing, why they're coming, what they're looking to achieve in a day or 2 days, or it can be shorter than that, of course. Mm-hmm. And what is the relationship to money that they're looking to work with? Now, the key here, in terms of the process, is to understand, and this was what I took 7 years to research, understand what money is for each person. And everybody who's listening to this, if you want to do a little bit of research for yourself right now, you can just ask yourself, what is money for me? Because this is actually, it's very simple, my process. It's the key starting point. So I would ask you, Robert, what is money for you? Mm. And you'd have maybe 2 or 3 or 10 things come quite quickly without giving them too much thought. And that's the starting point. Now, the second thing is then to understand how money works and where money is. So most people think of money as a thing or a promise or a key for distribution or a social technology, or if I look at what Harari said, he says it's a universal mechanism of trust. Mm-hmm. So you can have hundreds of definitions. Mostly money is my freedom, my security, my happiness, my peace, etc. Now, what you need to understand is that money is not what you think it is superficially like this. Mm-hmm. And very few people have researched or looked into this. So what you say or think money is has a consequence, but is not actually what you think and say it is. So what it is a neutral medium onto which you project these attributes. And this is the key thing to understand. So if you say money is security, so I've happened to have a little bit of what's called money here in front of me. It's actually just a piece of paper, which could be like another piece of paper. But if I hold both of them up together, people usually see which one they prefer pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. So if you understand that, you can understand that actually the money is not anywhere else but in your head. Mm-hmm. It's in your projection. And this is the key thing to understand first about what I'm calling the money work. Because if you are projecting without being conscious of what you're projecting, what happens is that the medium you project onto, in this case, money, takes over and becomes your master and you become its slave. So if you're conscious about what you're doing with it and what you're projecting, it works through projection. If you're conscious what you're projecting onto it, it actually works for you and you're the master, it becomes your servant.
So it's a mirror or a projection screen.
That's right. That's actually how it works, or my suggestion of how it works, and what we are really not aware of, because we've never been giving it thought or never been taught, never been educated in that.
Have you ever looked at or researched the number of people that came to your course? Because you only let them in once. Maybe you'll let them in a second time.
Yeah.
If they behave themselves, and that they quit their job and they change their career. I'd be curious to know because we saw that a lot when we started TBLI, and I said, remember, coming to TBLI will not only change your life, it will change your job. And I discovered many people quit their job and look for a different purpose.
Yeah.
Do you find that also with people?
All the time. All the time. It has to do with raising the level of consciousness. Ultimately, the money work has nothing to do with money. It's to do with consciousness. And as you raise your level of consciousness, you will want to stop being an employee. And you will want to start looking at what you're doing with your life and take, your life becomes your life project, if you like. And you want to do things that you love doing, not to be on the hamster wheel, to not be doing what you love doing. So now it sounds quite simple, but many people, of course, I have many people who've left their job.
Yeah.
Usually they're unemployable afterwards, even if they want to go back to a job.
Several of them are attending this seminar.
So what happens is that you really do, as your consciousness goes up, I was unemployable at one point. You become unemployable. It's not because you don't have all the skills and talents, but the people that you're going to for a job are scared the shitless out of you because they feel the energy and the power that you've got. So, with this rising consciousness. But actually, what you're on a path is to create your own initiative, to create your own life path, actually, or your own project. Now, this sounds very simple and very nice, but what is needed to understand is that it's not the end of the path. So the people that have done my work, what they understand, and the people that are my trainers really understand, is that you must continue to do what I'm calling this consciousness, or in practical terms, reclamation work. What the work involves. So how I help people change their relationship to money is that when you know what you're projecting onto it, onto money or onto anything else, and this becomes your slave, your master, and you become its slave, the way you actually decondition yourself and solve this is that you look at the projection, say it's security, and you need to reclaim this security to your inner self, because you've disconnected from your inner security and you're now putting it outside yourself on money. So the key is to actually, and I use a language for this, say to yourself, I'm insecure, and it's perfectly okay to be insecure. And at the same time, I'm secure with and without money. I'm using language as the system to actually decondition. But what I want to say with this is that once you've done one thing, you will feel liberated and free, but then comes the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And if you leave your job and start, your own project, it doesn't mean that you're suddenly enlightened. You're going to be challenged, and you're going to be pulled back by the old system with the next things that need to be reclaimed, and the next thing that needs to be reclaimed, and the next thing that needs to be reclaimed. And so this is a continuing process. It's a wonderful process, and I'm quite proud that all my trainers and practitioners really understand this. And every time I meet them, their consciousness is in a higher and higher place. I have a fantastic community of practitioners, because they're continuing and continuing and continuing to do this work. They're doing wonderful work because they don't stop. They know, they recognize it's really necessary. And I'm the first one that recognizes I haven't stopped either, of course.
I would think that family offices would be very interested in what you're doing, but the private banks that might have them as clients would be terrified of letting you loose. You are the financial terrorist. You are the Donald Trump of sieging the capital. So I would imagine most of your high net worth or asset owners come directly to you, but not through advisors. Is that true?
That is true, and let me say it's still very early days at that level.
You've been doing it 30 years. It's not
I
early.
know I have a lot of patience, and I have a lot of trust in the practitioners I'm training. The people are going.
The
The
key
people.
is it's not, the convincing is not hard. The hard part is access. The more zeros somebody has, the more isolated they are. So you always need someone to open up that door.
But even I've had them come in individually.
Mhm.
People from companies, for example, naively thinking, well, when they come in, they will want to be sharing this in their company, and had a lot of experience that actually, when they have this experience themselves, they don't necessarily want to share it. They want to keep it for themselves and keep it more private. So
Mm.
it has been a longer process, and um, it's accelerating right now, and it needs to accelerate more, because without this acceleration, um, the the issues that Greta has been bringing in, for example, and other people, inequality and and climate change. I mean, you and I have been dealing with this and knowing this for 30 years, that this has to be dealt with. But now it's actually coming into the public awareness in a way which we would have dreamt of even 10 years ago. But the actions being taken are yet not sufficient here. And and this is where my personal hope is, that we can catalyze action on a much bigger level now, and that people will be readier to look at. I think COVID may even be a help in this. That people are much more ready to put themselves in these processes, because you can see we've got a wild financial system right now. It's completely wild. I mean, Elon Musk puts a 1.5 billion into Bitcoin, and the whole world goes crazy.
Mm.
you know, uh, and all the money being created as a result of COVID for things which I feel are important, but up to this point, up to COVID, we were saying, you can't. There's shortage of money for all the social things, etc. We're seeing what a lie that is,
Mm.
actually.
I think that people, asset owners, forget that dying rich is not an accomplishment. Where they think that it's a great accomplishment. I want to take a couple of questions. Marcel, a recovering pension fund manager and billionaire, but he hasn't told his wife, was asking, well, what if you first work for the common good and don't have money to support this work for society? We need money for doing this work. I don't have the luxury to be wealthy. I thought you were. I can work well with money if I would have it.
Okay, so let me answer that very directly to Marcel. So, a couple of weeks ago, I don't know if Alessandro Mela is here on this call, but
I'm not sure.
I was at one of his forums a couple of weeks ago with investors, and I was saying that actually there are only two people in the world who can't do anything. They are the richest person and the poorest person. And all the rest of us are in between. So, Marcel, there is definitely somebody who is wealthier than you, but there's also definitely somebody that's poorer than you. So, I don't accept your excuse that there's nothing that you can do, because with the amount of money that you have, you can go out somewhere for sure. And if you choose to give some money to a poorer person than you, because there definitely are some. And if you need money for your project, you can go out and look for somebody who's richer than you. And there's no reason why you shouldn't go and do that and ask for it. So I don't accept your reason for paralysis.
But wouldn't it be better if everybody just adopts your approach, which is lay down in the hammock and everything will kind of come to you eventually? It just might take 30 or 40 years.
Well, I lay down in the hammock until I feel called to do stuff. At the moment, I'm being called to do a hell of a lot of stuff. I'm not doing much laying down in the hammock right now, I can assure you. But
Okay.
actually, yes, it would be better if everybody was like me. The world would be wonderful, of course, as everybody thinks.
Steve wanted to ask a question. Could you give us a macroeconomic and psychological view of money, meaning the myths of the market and the economics, which I guess programs more growth into many of us? How does one rationalize how perpetual growth is untenable, but the world seems to mainline on this drug?
Mm-hmm. Okay. To cut it short, because I could give a very long lecture, but I would suggest that you look up the work of somebody from the 17th century called Samuel Hartlib, Hartlib, because he and his group of intellectuals in that time were actually the creators of the present money system. And the present money system, the way it's designed, intentionally has a growth imperative in it. And it was deliberately planned that way to give impulse for risk taking. And so there are two aspects of it. There's the system of money, which most of you know and are dealing in. And then there's the conditioning over several generations, which is what I've been dealing with, which is totally coherent with this growth imperative. And I've spent a lot of time with people who recognize it's time to stop growth and try to reform the existing system. The problem is you can't reform the existing system if you don't do this inner work that I'm talking about, because the system has been built on this inner conditioning over many generations, and your parents, my parents, and our grandparents and our grandparents have almost, it's almost like a genetic conditioning, which is why I call it a reconstruction of neural pathways, the work that I've been doing. So I haven't gone into detail in the macroeconomics, but it is explainable in terms of the time period of the Enlightenment, after the Enlightenment, the system that was created after the Enlightenment for science, advance of science, the Industrial Revolution, and linear production, which is taught at management schools and still being taught today. So this is all a very, very coherent process. And what we need right now, and this is the challenge, is to build a new system with new monies, new currencies, and more, which has that same level of coherence as the existing system which we're coming out of. Because to deal with one or two SDGs, for example, is insufficient, because you'll still be dealing with the same financial system, for example, at the bottom. Okay. So that's my attempt to answer quickly.
One of your fan club members, Dr. Krins, is it a way that you have to trust on the universe that it will provide in the end?
I don't think you have to do anything in life, but I think it helps to trust. Actually, it helps to trust where you trust, and it helps to mistrust where you mistrust. I think I love the statement, trust in God and tether your camel. I think that's a very wise, that's a really good piece of, I think it's even Sufi wisdom.
Ricky went on to kind of elaborate, but for her it led to a lot of stress, not having any income, bills piling up, and she gets it, but she doesn't like dealing with the stress. Does your training or engagement help people dealing with the stress if they don't have the monthly cash flow to cover the bills?
When it works well, yes. Because being in stress or being at peace ultimately has, if you go down below the surface, doesn't have to do with the quantity of money in any direction. So you can be very stressed, as I'm sure you meet these people all the time, being a billionaire.
In the mirror.
So have very stressed billionaires, you have very stressed people in debt, and you have stressed people with nothing.
It's true. I find asset owners not very balanced.
Yeah.
Most of the ones that I have met.
Yeah.
Most are, they almost seem like hawks. A hawk is kind of hovering to pounce. There's no kind of chill about it. It's just constantly, vibrating like that.
Yeah.
Fear of missing out on something.
Yeah. So, but I do understand Ricky's question, because in my experimentation, I once had as a younger man, I had much more money than I needed. And as I started experimenting to look at this work and do this work, I actually ran out of money, or what's called ran out of money. I had 7 francs in my pocket, and was in Switzerland, and was quite sort of stressed with that. But the relief came when I recognized what my projection was on it. And that was, I was associating money with my existence. So this was an incredible moment for me to recognize that existing had nothing to do with money, because I was existing. I didn't have any money, or I had only a tiny piece of very little money, but actually I didn't feel my existence threatened at all. Now, this was actually one of the best gifts that I've received in my life. Having that insight at that moment helped me tremendously, and I probably wouldn't be able to do the work I do if I hadn't had that experience, because I meet many people stressed in the same way that Ricky's talking about, and I can come from and deal with that from my own experience and share that as well as just do the work with my system. So I do have a deep appreciation, and in a sense, the work. I'm living in Switzerland, and people sometimes say, it's very easy for you. You're living in comfort and an elite, etc. situation and special. And look at the poor people in Africa. But actually, this really doesn't touch and really doesn't apply, because I've been dealing with people in all walks of life, in all kinds of situations. Some really, really crisis, deep life and death situations, and been able to help them with this particular system. And it's been a great privilege to be able to do so.
Henrika had a question. Can you list examples of actions you are observing and consider positive or effective? Kind of broad.
Well, I would say, as I was suggesting before, to do a little experiment like I started doing, which started me in this work 35 years ago, is to just take and start with small amounts of money and try to give them with love. Give money with love to somebody else, and you'll see what happens. There'll be all sorts of different reactions you'll be getting. It should make you very curious, as it made me. But you don't only have to give. If you are with very wealthy people, you can actually ask for money and try and see the love that flows when they give you money. Because many very wealthy people really don't know what to do with their money. And I remember being in one seminar where by chance, 2 members of a family were from a very wealthy family. And they met there by chance, an aunt and a nephew. And the aunt was saying, my poor nephew, it's a terrible situation he's in. Every month, money is pouring on top of his head like chocolate. So, and I know that there are many people that feel like that in this kind of situation. If you have, these millions and you're in shares, this money is just pouring on you all the time. And I know that, you know better than me, it's difficult to find good places to put it at that level of quantity. But that's why I'm talking about small quantities, because if you start getting a sense of where you make an impact, a real impact on people's lives by just moving money with love, then you can get a better sense of what you need to do with larger amounts as well.
I had a question over here from Cornis from the Lucht. Working on a blueprint for integrated multi-capital or new accounting. I've had long debates with people on monetization, some for, some against. The real issue is not monetization or not. Even if the currency we work with is in producing things, implementation and commerce were potatoes or bananas, there will still be some egoists who end up seeing that currency as a goal in itself. The real issue is time frame, short-termism versus long-term, and scale, economies of scale versus small is beautiful. Not, question mark.
Not, so he's...
Or not.
I think I can agree with that. I think I can agree with what with what you're saying. It's quite a sophisticated statement.
He's a very classy guy. Bonnie was wondering, many people don't have access to opportunity, education, are stuck on the hamster wheel as they need to pay their mortgages and feed their children or be born into the Trump family I added that. How do we create a different, more adequate system? Trickle-down economics is broken. Well, it was never really working to begin with.
So, my suggestion, as I've been making it here, is actually starting very modestly. So, my deep belief is you have to start with yourself and not a system outside yourself. So you start with if you like, with your own system and go out from there. So as you become more conscious, as I become more conscious, I see more places where I can actually do something which were not available to me before. So it's like I have, let me put it another way, with each part of myself that I've been projecting outside myself, whether it's into money or into something else, each part of myself that I reconnect with, I develop another strategy for dealing with life as it's presented itself to me. So in another sense, I have another investment strategy, whether it's a financial investment or whether it's investing myself somewhere. So that's my answer to that kind of question. So to change the system outside we need to change the system inside. And the real question is, in dealing with a collective system, and this is where we are right now looking at things like climate change, there has to be, I think, a critical mass of consciousness to really make an impact. And that's why this work for me is so important, that we're doing this consciousness work, because I'm thoroughly convinced that when we bring our energies together and all our projects together and our new technologies together, we do have the intelligence hopefully, to answer these big questions. But if we're sitting in our silos and each one with his own project and saying, well, actually, something else needs to happen out there before I can start to do something in here, then we're going to feel disempowered and lost, and we won't even start to do something. So the work, in my view, does start with each one of us in here, and I hope the message is coming across that each one of us does have the ability to do something, even if it's passing small amounts of money with love, and especially with passing small amounts of money with love.
And how do you do that?
Oh, well.
Write a little heart on the cash.
No, no, please just send me your bank account, Robert, and I'll show you.
Actually, we had a moment like that. I think it was last time because we say if people want to support us, make a donation to the foundation. And this person who I didn't know sent me a mail. I loved what I heard. It was great, and he sent us €1,000. I was just blown away because that was the first time that had ever happened.
So he's got the message, you see, and that's what needs to be happening more. So, I can send you some money. You can send it back to me. If there's love there, it's like love flows in all directions.
Right. I think if the money came in, I don't think Ricky would send it back. I think it would probably stay there. Bonnie was saying, when people have so much food insecurity, getting them interested in climate change is going to be a big jump. Yeah. How do you deal with that? Because you're not dealing with poor people who are coming to your sessions.
I am too.
Oh, also. Okay. I didn't know.
I have people who are of all levels of wealth and all levels of debt. And actually, that's what makes the work very interesting, because you put them in the same room, and the exchanges that happen, they learn incredibly from each other. If we put a millionaire or billionaire in the room with somebody who's heavily in debt, and that person explains how they're managing life, and particularly if they're able to managing life well, there's incredible learning that can take place. And in the opposite direction too, of course.
But is the billionaire more stressed out than the homeless person?
I wouldn't say more or less. It depends. This is where it comes down to the individual, so much to the individual and the way they're looking at what money is and how they're treating it. So I've had both. I've had people with heavily in debt with very little stress or no stress, and billionaires with a lot of stress, and vice versa. It tends to be people who have a lot of money, I would say, do tend to be stressed. I think you've had that experience too. So the money is not having more money is not necessarily de-stressing.
Although if I did, I don't think I told Ricky about all of those billions. So that hasn't actually occurred. How can this audience, because you're trying to scale up your consciousness outreach, of putting a heart on the dollar or the euro or the Swiss franc, what can this audience do to help you? I know that you're doing a big event, hybrid, face-to-face and virtual. What can this audience do with respect to thought leadership, attendance, outreach?
Well, first of all, yes, I am putting on a big Congress. It's like the biggest challenge I've given myself. Now, it's
more than 100,000 attendees.
Well, this was my estimate, and we'll see how many actually show up in reality. But when I tuned in at a certain moment, I saw it, and it's for April, and COVID has come along. It's like a moving situation, and I don't know how many there will be. But if you want to look at create love in all in one word .business.
Type it in the chat part there.
You've put it in the chat?
Well, if you tell me how to what's it? What is?
Create love in .business.
And love, LOVEIN?
LOVEIN, yes.
Business and written out completely?
Yes, business written out completely.
Okay.
So this is actually still a work in progress website. I'm so ambitious with this that my team, I've got a wonderful team of 15 people, and they've been working very hard to get the website up, but I keep on coming with new stuff, so it's not quite ready yet. So please, if this is of interest to you, do join this Congress. This is about creating love in business as the new bottom line. Instead of financial results as the bottom line, creating love in business. And for any that are really interested to do this inner work, I'd like to offer, where shall I put this? I've got some of my practitioners' work I can offer as well.
Okay.
It's much longer. Can I send you the link?
I'll distribute that to everyone when we send the link for the replay.
Right. I'll send you the link to that. So there are some online programs now with some of my practitioners doing this money work. So if any of you feel that this is something that you would really like to do for yourself, your relationship to money, to expand, I call it expanding your relationship to money, and helping to know where to invest or where to find investors, etc. Then there are some online programs now on this subject.
We're two closing questions here. I wanted to know, your website doesn't seem to have contact information. Is that by design?
No, contact information. Yeah, my contacts are there on my website, and my email address at least.
You can reach out to Peter, because everyone who registers for any of our events, you have this private database that you can reach out to them, send them a message. It's on your phone or on your desktop. If you have any problems, just ask me. One final question from Lisette. Can you say something about what keeps people with money from putting all their money behind their ideals?
Yes. It's what I've explained, actually, in terms of that they have a projection onto it, like, let's say, keep it simple, like security. So I have wonderful ideals, but if I put all my money into my ideals, will I feel secure? And if I have my security attached to my money in my mind, then I'm going to start feeling insecure. And if I don't want to feel insecure, then I'd better put money where I think it'll be secure first. But then my money is not going to my ideals. So that's actually what's happening with very, very many people. And this was the start. The question actually relates to how I started doing this work, because I was working with top business people who, in taking them into retreats, working on their values, their visions, and their purpose in the 1980s, very early days of doing this work. And they got so excited and they were so enthusiastic, and they were coming up with all sorts of promises of how they were going to change the world. And then I saw after 2 or 3 years, they weren't able to do this. It wasn't happening. And then I recognized that the relationship to money was actually pulling them away from their ideals. How they had it set up in their neural pathways was pulling them away from doing their ideals now, and pulling them away from their values, and pulling them away from their purpose. Mm-hmm. So this is what actually motivated me to get into this work, to bring the relationship of money into line step by step. It's not an instant thing, but step by step, bring it into line with the ideals or the values. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. We're going a bit over time. I need to wrap up. Peter, I want to thank you. I'll send everyone who registered a link to the replay, and also a link to Peter's event if you want to follow up. Before we go, I'd like to take one group selfie with everyone who showed up. So I will start. So just take a photo of yourself, and then while this system is asking each of you to make a photo of yourself, it will compile that, and then I'll send a copy of the finished photo with everyone's in there. I want to thank our entire production crew for making this webinar or this interview possible. Sam, our producer, crypto genius and ramen critic. Ricky, my absolute better half with no filter. Xi Jinping, head of transparency and integrity. The Myanmar generals, our power sharing coaches. Alexander Lukashenko, voting ethics professor. Jeff Bezos, our human resources and full text compliance leader. Ted Cruz, our sedition expert and humility mentor. Yoweri Museveni, director of fair elections monitoring. Marjorie Taylor Greene, our astronomer specializing in Jewish lasers, and Elon Musk, our humility coach. Thank you all for making this a great session, and I hope to see you in 2 weeks. Next week has been postponed. So thanks again. I'm going to shut off the group selfie now. So thanks again, and I'll send you all a copy of this. Thank you, Peter, very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Robert. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Always is. Always is. Thanks. Stay well. Okay, save photo. Great. Okay, if you go to the red door, you can go home.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. Cheers. Bye for now. Oops. Exit. There we go.
Yeah.
Am I out? No, I'm not out yet. How do I get out?
See, I have to stop the stream.